Excellent. Well, welcome back, everybody, to an introduction to psychoanalysis. This is our ninth session, so we only have two more after this, which is pretty exciting, and they're going to be jam-packed, just like everyone so far. So it'll be fun to go through that with you all. And of course, today we're going to cover Jacques Lacan, so it's going to be like a crash course, getting some main Lacanian concepts down. Okay, now what are all these things that I just mentioned? We're going to go over some central Lacanian concepts, including the mirror stage, the three registers of the imaginary, symbolic, and real, Lacan's statement that the unconscious is structured like a language, signifiers, desire, lack, the big other, jouissance, objet petit a, the phallus, fantasy, the four discourses, and the subject supposed to know. Quickly. All right. So, the mirror stage. The mirror stage, and you're going to hear all of these terms. If you encounter Lacanians, they're going to be throwing these terms around all over the place and many more. But these are basic points. The mirror stage is one of Lacan's earliest and most famous theories. It describes the formation of the ego through the infant's identification with its image in the mirror. Lacan posits that at a certain point in early development, between age 6 months and 18 months, the child recognizes herself in the mirror. At that moment, and this is essential, the child looks to the mother or primary caregiver for confirmation or assurance that the image she sees in the mirror is in fact herself. This is important because it shows the way our sense of self and identity is tied to our social bonds. It's not enough for us just to see ourselves in the mirror and recognize ourselves. We also need confirmation from the other or the social. And this is also how you can really understand why people like trans people, for example, why it's so important to adjust the body and the mirror reflection and be in the social in that way, because that's part of how we form our identity and how our identity works, and it helps us feel cohesive and safe when we can recognize ourselves in the mirror. It's important. After the child receives the confirmation that the image in the mirror is indeed herself, she then turns back to the mirror image and looks at it and reflects on it. What the child sees in the mirror seems to be cohesive, unified, whole, complete. But this image that the child sees as this whole cute baby there uh, often contrasts with how the child feels inside, Lacan posits, where the bodily sensations are happening. You're getting these like feelings in your body. At this point, we're not coordinated, like we don't have good motor coordination. We're still really like finding our way in the world, right? And trying to understand our body and how it works. And so if this happens at such a young age where we recognize this 6 to 18 months, when we're feeling so unstable in our body and really learning to get coordinated, there seems to be this kind of division between how we feel, our subjective experience in our body, and what we see ourselves as, right? So if you can then expand that to the idea of ourselves in the world and our ego, how our ego forms, the baby then identifies with the image that the baby sees in the mirror, and internalizes that, and that becomes the ego. So our sense of self or our ego or identity isn't how we actually feel in the body. It's this identification with this image of ourselves that's out there that we then internalize. And that's why Lacan says we always have this kind of sense of dissonance or alienation from ourselves, or we're divided in this way. I hope that made sense. That's as clear as I can explain it. Um, the child becomes attached to and identified with an image that seems to represent itself and its own unity, but this unity is what Lacan will call imaginary. Again, not what we think of as imaginary, because it's Lacan. He means it in the sense of literally of the image. Imaginary in Lacanian's world is of the image. The image is external and it's also idealized. Like we imagine that the thing in the mirror, the baby in the mirror, is better than ourselves, is more whole than ourselves, right? The ego is an imaginary construction, therefore, a fantasy, an image of coherence that we cling onto that masks our more fragmented sense of self and our dependent condition. This is central to why Lacan's theory is so opposed to any psychology, such as ego psychology, that treats the ego as the secure base of the personality and actually tries to work with the ego, like make it stronger, make it go to work, etc. Because that's not actually us. We're what he calls the subject. The mirror stage also introduces aggression and rivalry into the formation of the ego from the get-go. The image in the mirror is both self, ourselves, and its other. It gives the child a sense of itself, but also places the child in relation to this external double. And then we can think of like Otto Rank and the double and the uncanny. That's where that kind of comes in. So there's therefore always this tension within ourselves between identity and identification and a sense of alienation. One sees oneself in the other, in the mirror image, but also in other people, but also feels alienated by the other fundamentally because of this original kind of identification that Lacan posits that we all have. This dynamic extends throughout human relations and can bring with it threat and competition. You can see it in envy, rivalry, admiration, idealization, jealousy, and just any comparison. It all stems back to this relation to the mirror image and comparing ourselves in the way we feel inside to what we see out there. So in this way, we are all inherently divided against ourselves. Lacan extends the mirror stage past childhood development to describe the structure of human subjectivity itself. Throughout our lives, we continue to rely on images with which to identify celebrities, body images, professional roles, social media personalities, romantic fantasies and ideals, political identifications, etc., etc. These images can provide some sense of stability and security, but they can also be misleading, making us feel bad, shameful, competitive. Lacan's theory of the mirror stage has had enormous influence in cultural and media theory and is more important now than ever in understanding the impact of the digital world.